Christmas. It's the most wonderful and chaotic time of the year. Christmas, a season that it feels like we anticipate for so long, and then all of a sudden it just becomes a blur. Christmas, a season that's filled with so many incredible memories. And, well, growing up, I think about all of these Christmas memories. The day after Thanksgiving, our family would pile into the Ford Granada. Some of you remember the Ford Granada. They were, built like a tank. And we would drive out to a Christmas tree farm. And early on, they allowed you to cut down your own Christmas tree. It was awesome. So my dad would cut down the Christmas tree, and we would drag it to the car. And then later on, they stopped allowing you to do that. But they would freshly cut them, and then you would walk into a big, barn-like structure, and you could choose your Christmas tree. And after we selected our Christmas tree, we'd go into this little house, and they would have warm apple cider and hot chocolate and little goodies, and you'd walk around, look at everything, and then we'd get back in the car, and, we'd spend the day decorating. I think about the Christmas season, and one of my most favorite things my mom makes, not just Thanksgiving, but also Christmas, is her pecan pie. I'm telling you, it is the best pecan pie I've ever eaten. I mean, I love pecan pie. I've eaten a lot of good pecan pies, but my mom's pecan pie is the best. I mean, heat it up warm with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, delicious. The next morning, wake up early, cut yourself a slice, keep it cold with a cup of coffee. It is the perfect, not healthy, but the perfect breakfast. And I can't wait because my mom's coming this year for Christmas, and guess what? She's going to make pecan pie. And hey, Mom, I know you're watching. You're making a pecan pie. I love you. I can't wait. I think about the Christmas season, and this last July, and my mom and my sister and myself, we all traveled and met together in Bloomington, Illinois. It was a town that we were raised in, and we went to see some longtime family friends, but we had an opportunity to drive out to the home that, again, we were raised in, and it was incredible. I had not been outside this house for over 20 years, and just driving down the road and stopping right in front of it and looking, it was just, you talk about memories. And as we got out of the car and we were kind of looking at the house. We were on the road, though. We didn't walk up the driveway, but all of a sudden, one of the owners of the house, the lady walked out of the house, and she saw us standing there. My mom just quickly walked up to her and introduced herself to her, and before we knew it, they were the same couple that bought this house off of my parents. It was a crazy moment. Well, she was so kind, and she walked with us around the house, and my sister and I and my mom, we just talked about all of these memories. And then all of a sudden, she invited us to, actually walk into the house. Now, I had not been inside my childhood home for over 31 years. I mean, this is a family room right here, and I tell you, just walking into the family room, I mean, just a flood of memories. I think about the fire in the fireplace and my dad teaching me how to make a fire. I think about kind of the opposite wall from the fireplace is where we put the real Christmas tree. I think about Christmas evening. You see, all of our extended family lived in other states. And so as a young child, my parents wanted Christmas Day to be special. So in the morning, it was just our immediate family. But because all of our extended family lived way away from us, my parents started to invite people over to our house Christmas evening who didn't have family around the area. And this thing grew and grew and grew and grew. I'm talking, there'd be 75, 85, 100 plus people that would come in and through our house that Christmas evening. They'd bring their Christmas dinner leftovers and goodies. And I mean, laughter filled the house, food filled the house, people everywhere. It was just one of those Christmas memories. I stood in our family room, and we just talked about those type of memories. Now, I tried not to snap too many pictures inside the house because I didn't want to take advantage of the kindness of, the owner allowing us to be in the house. But as I thought about my childhood home, you see, if you look right kind of on the right side of this tree trunk, you'll see a window. That was my bedroom. If you make your way to the end of the house, you can it's in the shadows, is another window. That was my sister's bedroom. On the back side of the house was my parents' bedroom. And we walked down that hallway and we stood there looking into all three rooms. And again, memories. As a child, that hallway seemed so long and so big, especially on Christmas morning. We'd have to wait in our bedrooms until mom and dad got up and said, "You can go." And we'd run down that hallway. And that hallway, again, felt so long and so big. But my sister and I just stood there, again, some 31 years later, and we were just amazed how short the hallway really was. Memories. Before we left, my mom and my sister and I stood right in front of the house, and we took a picture. And I tell you, it was such a special moment, but it was filled with some sadness. I mean, my dad's been gone for 10 years. But as we made our way through the house, as we walked around the yard, I mean, we saw these pecan trees. Dad was so proud of planting, and all of a sudden now these small little seedlings, some 30 years later, were, way over 75 feet tall. As we made our way from the backyard into that family room, we walked onto the deck, a deck that Dad built. And we just stood there because we remembered him building it. As we walked into the basement, it was a basement that was completely unfinished when my parents bought the house. And over the years, he had finished the entire basement. And I tell you, other than the decorations, the basement looked the same. As we talked about Christmas Eve and Christmas morning in the house, what was missing was my dad. And here's the thing with Christmas. Christmas is one of those seasons where it kind of marks moments in life, doesn't it? For some of you, you're coming into this Christmas season, and it's the first year without a loved one. And you're having to face this first Christmas without that person that means so much to you being part of Christmas. For some of you, you're in this Christmas season, and it's your first Christmas from, navigating through a divorce. And Christmas this year looks and feels so different than Christmases before. For some of you, you're living in a new house, maybe a new town, maybe going to a new church. And again, it's Christmas, but it feels so different. It is so different. For you, this Christmas is just filled with uncertainty because a job has come to an end, or maybe you know it's coming to an end, and the uncertainty of what January is going to look like is quickly racing at you. And for some of you, Christmas, there's joy and excitement. There's also sorrow and loss. Yes, there's great memories that you hold on to, yet you're finding yourself encountering new memories that just has you sad. And that's why this series is so important for us. In this season, it's so important for us to lens everything through the manger. As we've been making our way through December, and as we head into our Christmas Eve services, we've been looking at this dialogue, this conversation that is recorded in John chapter 14. In John 14, three lesser-known apostles that Jesus handpicked, that had spent 3+ years with Jesus, they spoke up. And I think it's just interesting that these 3 lesser-known apostles were the ones to, speak up, but they weren't just speaking for themselves. They were saying what everyone else was wondering and what everyone else was questioning, what everyone else was processing. In part 1, it was Thomas that said to Jesus, "Hey, Jesus, we don't know where you're going, so how would we ever know the way?" It was a very logical question to what they had just heard Jesus say. In part 2, we looked at Philip. I mean, he just makes the statement, "Hey, Jesus, just show us God the Father. That's enough. That's all we need." And then, in a moment, we'll get to the 3rd apostle. But remember, and context is so important, remember who's writing this story. We call it a book of the Bible. It's the Gospel of John, the story of Jesus. Who wrote the Gospel of John? Well, it was John. Who was John? John was an apostle. John was sitting there. John ate dinner with everyone. John lived through all of this. And years later, he's writing down the story of Jesus, the story that he personally encountered. And all of a sudden, as he's telling this story in John 14 about Thomas and then Philip, and all of a sudden he writes, "Then Judas." Now, in our English Bibles, all of a sudden there's these parentheses that says, "Not Judas Iscariot." Now, this is really important. Remember, right before this, they had dinner. Jesus took a piece of bread, dipped it in the bowl, handed it to Judas Iscariot, and said, "Just go do what you are planning on doing." And Judas Iscariot left the house. He left to go betray Jesus and, in turn, to betray every one of his friends around the table. Is there anything more damaging? Is there anything more hurtful? Is there anything more relationally fracturing than betrayal? I don't think there is. And that's why I don't think John just simply wrote, "Not Judas Iscariot." I think emotionally, he was like, "Not Judas Iscariot." There was 2 Judases. Not that other one. Not that guy. There's a different Judas, a much better Judas. And here's what I feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for this Judas because he had to live the rest of his life going, no, Judas, I'm not Judas Iscariot. That's not me. That guy's not here anymore. I'm a different Judas. Like kind of in our modern day, if your name is Karen, I feel so horrible for you because one Karen and social media like ruined the name Karen. Like it just is. And I'm sure if your name's Karen or you know a Karen, I'm sure you're an amazing Karen. You're a kind, a life-giving, encouraging Karen. But there was one that ruined it for everyone. And this is Judas Iscariot, right? One Judas, he ruined it for the rest of the Judases. And John's like, hey, I just want you to know, this is a different Judas who was an apostle. So there was 2 apostles named Judas. And this Judas spoke up. But Lord, why do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world? Now remember, the framework in which the apostles understood their Bible, the Old Testament, and Jesus, who they considered to be the promised Messiah. And that word Messiah means anointed one or anointed leader or anointed king. The framework was they were anticipating this king to raise Israel up as a mighty kingdom to go against Rome. And so Philip just asks the logical question. Jesus, if you're the promised Messiah, the anointed one, the anointed leader, the anointed king who's going to raise up an army to go against Rome, how can you not show yourself to Rome? Again, a very logical question based off of, well, his and the rest of their understanding. Yes, he says the word world, but Rome was the world. Rome was the world power. Rome was everything during this time period. And especially for those Jews living in ancient Israel. They were subservient to Rome. They paid taxes to Rome. They had to do what Rome told them to do. And every time they saw a Roman soldier walking down the road or in one of their towns or in one of their cities, it was a reminder that they were occupied. And Philip's like, Jesus, if you're the promised king, the anointed leader, you have to show yourself to the world. You have to show yourself to Rome. And Jesus replies, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. Now, if you've been on this journey with us through John chapter 14, numerous times Jesus has reiterated this one point. Love and obedience are intrinsically connected together. Over and over again. If you're a parent, you know this. There's a few things that you say over and over and over again. Like, will you please turn off the lights? I just did the other day. I have two awesome adult daughters. I'm like, the sun's out. It's in the middle of the day. Will you please shut off the lights? Right? It's just one of those things I say over and over again. And I think for the apostles, they're feeling like this at this point. Because Jesus over and over again is coming back to love equals obedience. And obedience equals love. And all of a sudden, Philip makes this statement about showing yourself to the world. And Jesus almost just ignores his statement and comes back to go, well, but if you love me, you'll obey my teaching. And he goes, my Father will love them. And now Jesus again has connected himself directly to God the Father. And he goes, and we will come to them and make our home with them. That word home, again, is this word monet. In part one, we looked at this statement from Jesus. When Jesus says, I'm going to go prepare a place for you. My Father's house has many rooms, has many monets, this dwelling place idea. We talked about where heaven is not so much about a palace in the sky, but about God's presence. That heaven isn't about rooms, it's about a relationship. In part two, Jesus talks about that he will give them the advocate, the Spirit of truth, and God the Spirit will dwell, will abide with them and in them. And here he goes again, and he brings us back in, and he goes, you got to understand that we will come to them and we will make our home, our dwelling with them. And anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. Again, he's saying the same thing, just in the negative form, right? He's been saying it in the positive form, obey equals love and love equals obeying. Now he just flips it to the negative and he goes, well, if you don't love me, you won't obey me. If you won't obey me, you won't love me. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me. Over and over again, Jesus models for us how we are to live our life in reflection of him. And this is another image of humility. He starts the evening washing their feet, modeling humility over and over again. He teaches them by modeling humility that Jesus himself humbles himself to God the Father. And Jesus is like, this is what love looks like, to humble yourself and lift other people up. You see, I think about this moment. He still hasn't directly answered Philip's statement, Philip's question. But he's painting such an incredible picture of the purpose in which God sent him and the purpose that God was going to send all of them on to be the vehicle, the church, to tell the world the good news about Jesus. And Jesus goes, anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me. All this I have spoken while I'm still with you. But the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. And again, they would be confounded, going, okay, well, you just said you're so with us. And Jesus, for the last 3 years, you've been reminding us and you've been teaching us. In fact, Jesus, you've been reminding us a lot just in the last few minutes about obedience and love and obedience. You've been doing a whole lot of reminding. So what do you mean now you're going to send us someone else to come beside us to remind us and teach us? Jesus, you are our teacher. And then Jesus says exactly what they needed to hear. He goes, peace, I leave you. And my peace, I give you. Peace, a gift that Jesus extends. He goes, I do not give to you as the world gives. Remember, the world was Rome. There was a phrase that was popular. It was called the Pax Romana. It's the Latin, which simply means Roman peace. It was a 200-year period of time from around 27 BC to around 180 AD. The first time that right now that we have recorded the Pax Romana, this phrase, the Roman peace, was from a guy named Seneca right around 55 AD. That's just the earliest recorded version of this. I mean, this is just years after Jesus left this earth and the church was exploding. But when we think about the Pax Romana, when we think about the Roman peace, if you're living in a Roman-occupied territory, it didn't feel peaceful. If your country had been taken over by Rome, it didn't feel peaceful. You see, Rome used the sword. Rome used their army. Rome used fear and intimidation and the sword to get their peace, a peace that worked for them, but no one else. And when Jesus said this, again, them living, yes, in Israel, Roman-occupied territory. And Jesus goes, I'm giving you a peace that this world will never be able to give you. I'm giving you a peace that's so vastly different. And then he goes, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. I mean, this is how he started. In John chapter 14, he started by saying, don't let your hearts be troubled. And he comes back and he goes, don't be afraid. Don't live in fear. Don't allow anxiety to rule over you. Don't. Because I'm giving you a gift of peace. And then Jesus goes, you've heard me say, I'm going away and I'm coming back to you. If you loved me, you would be glad that I'm going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I. Again, another picture of humility. I have told you now, before it happens, so when it does happen, you will believe. And what Jesus knows is, we are talking hours. And Jesus goes, just you better remember this. because all of this is going to make sense hours from now. I will not say much more to you, for the prince of the world is coming, but yet he has no hold over me. The prince of the world is Satan. And he goes, he has no hold over me. And then all of a sudden, he's going to tie back to Genesis chapter 3, when God looks at the serpent and he's talking with Adam and Eve. Sin has entered the world. And he makes a statement that he will crush your head, meaning crushing the serpent's head, meaning killing the serpent. And the serpent will strike his heel. It's this image of Jesus being crucified and Satan thinking that he has won, but God's going to raise him from the dead, victorious forever. And Jesus goes, he has no hold over me, but he comes so that the world may learn that I love the Father and do exactly what my Father has commanded me. Again, love and obedience. And then Jesus looks at them and goes, come now. Let us leave. You see, I think about the manger. I mean, isn't it a symbol of peace? Have you ever just sat there and watched a newborn sleep? There's nothing more peaceful. My wife and I recently were walking through the grocery store, and we literally ran into a couple that they've just had their first child, and they were just getting groceries. We were getting groceries, and we just sat there and just looked. The peace as their child just laid there. The peace of an infant. You see, I think about the manger, the peace that God set into motion. Why? Because the prince of this world, Satan, had already lost. He just didn't know it. I think about the manger, this season of Christmas. You see, I understand that some of you, it doesn't feel real peaceful this Christmas season for some of you. Again, this Christmas is looking so different. For some of you, what you're encountering and what you're facing doesn't feel peaceful. For some of you, just the thought of what's to come in the next few days and the next week doesn't feel peaceful. For some of you, this Christmas season so vastly different than last Christmas. My encouragement for you is to hold on to the gift that Jesus has given. His peace. Receive the gift. It doesn't mean that all the emotions will just go away. It doesn't mean that what you're facing will just disappear. It doesn't mean that there's still not a part of you that still is lonely, a part of you that still hurts, a part of you that still is going through the grieving process and you're still facing loss. It doesn't mean that all of what you're facing I don't feel it anymore. But there's something supernatural that happens when His peace settles right in the midst of your soul. There's something life-shaping when you encounter His peace. My prayer for you is that this season you'll rest in His peace. The prophet Isaiah, being the spokesperson for God, said these words, "For unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given. And the government will be upon His shoulders. And He will be called Wonderful Counselor. And he'll be called Mighty God. And he'll be called Everlasting Father. And he will be called Prince of Peace. And of the greatness of the government and peace, there will be no end. Receive the gift of peace. Rest in his peace. And experience the joy and the hope of Christmas. Let's pray. Lord, you know what every single person is going through. You know what every single person is facing in this Christmas season. And Lord, I just pray that they'll receive the gift of peace that you have extended to them. Lord, I pray that they will rest in your peace, that they'll receive your peace, that they'll embrace your peace. A peace that this world can't give. A peace that's a gift given from you, a loving Father. In your name I pray. Amen.